Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of LogTech Live in 2023. My God, how did we get so far that we're in 2023? Crazy. So glad you could join us today. I'm Eric Johnson, technology editor at the Journal of Commerce when I'm not hosting this show twice monthly. We have a great show lined up for today. Fantastic guest who thankfully could sub in for the guest that I was originally going to have, but you won't be disappointed. He's great, super thought-provoking on a number of issues that are directly relevant to the things that I care about. Before I bring my guest on, oh boy, my doggy is barking in the background, so you're going to have to make do with some commentary from the peanut gallery over here. But in the meantime, before we get into the news of the week and I bring my guest on, I just wanted to mention again some upcoming events that are coming up. First of all, and most important to me, TPM Tech is, I think, like 47 days away, something like that. I was 50 at some point this week. I lost track of the days. I'm not good at math. That's why I went into journalism. But it's February 23rd in Long Beach. Really hope to see you there. As you can see in the scrolling banner here, you can get 25% off a pass to TPM Tech with that code, EJ TPM25, I think it is. So really hope to see you there. We have, by the way, TPM which is happening right after TPM Tech, is going to be amazing this year. We have the CEOs of MSC, ONE, DHL Forwarding, Project 44, Flexport. I'm forgetting a million others. The new head of the Americas for CMA CGM, and so many amazing panels put together by my amazing colleagues on a variety of issues. We also have a new element called TPM Academy, which is for kind of people that are newer to the industry to go really deep on very specific topics, everything from like understanding Incoterms to better implementing technology into your department. So tons and tons of stuff. Definitely encourage you to look through the agenda and be very intrigued and have no other option but to come. And so hopefully we'll see you in Long Beach in a few weeks. Before then, I will be at the Manifest conference in Las Vegas, which is, I think, January 31st through Feb 2nd. I'm doing a couple panels, including one that'll be really fun on the very first day about how you pitch a journalist like myself. So I'll give you some tips about what to do and what not to do. And really looking forward to that. I think Sarah at Let's Talk Supply Chain will also be there. So seek us out. It should be a really fun event and a always fun place to be. So with that out of the way, let's get into news of the week. It's been kind of a quiet holiday period relative to the madness of the last 2 to 3 years. I sort of got completely accustomed to there always being 10 news stories every single day. So having to weed myself off of that idea and back to the normal kind of like prosaic logistics industry that we were more used to before the pandemic. But one of the interesting stories that my colleague Bill Cassidy wrote earlier this week was C.H. Robinson's CEO abruptly sort of leaving. While things like this are always surprising, I think some of the writing was on the wall. CH had some issues in terms of meeting financial targets, I guess, from the public investment landscape. So I think the interesting thing now is where do they go from here? And there's been a lot of speculation, both about is CH going to hive off its forwarding unit or some other part of its business, focus on its core business? Is it going to keep those businesses and try to repackage them in an interesting way? Who will be the next CEO? Is it going to be someone who's a little more tech oriented, someone who's a little more international oriented? Do they get acquired? Does the whole company get acquired or merged into another company to try to take advantage of CH's huge domestic transportation footprint and kind of marry that with a more global 3PL? Obviously, tons of interesting, avenues and tons of speculation going around. I don't really have a good view into what their next step will be or should be. I'm more of a reporter than a prognosticator. So, but we'll be watching with interest. So definitely encourage you to read that story. My colleague, Bill, forgot more about trucking than most people will ever know. So definitely encourage you to read his take on kind of next steps for C.H. Robinson. And this might be a topic that we dive into with my guest today. The next story I wanted to highlight from last week was a story I did kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? I talked earlier in December with a small technology provider that caters to forwarders and a very early stage forwarder, literally one that was founded in 2022, about how they were working together to build a quoting tool that the forwarder would find useful to kind of provide an instant quoting mechanism for customers coming to its website. The company called Waysync, super early, also founded in 2022, I think 5 people. To me, the interesting piece was these two companies, both kind of at the same path in their, or same point in their arc, working together in a very symbiotic relationship to further their own individual ambitions, right? The forwarder needs help with a product that it can kind of help mold and mold to its own needs. And the early stage technology provider needs actual input from potential customers to understand where it needs to go with its product, instead of just building something and hoping that companies will come to the table. So really interesting. I think we'll see a lot more of this in the future. Ruby, can you keep it down? Thank you. Someone's always got some comments, right? So let's go into the next story, which is a piece that I did about, this is a couple weeks back, right before Christmas, writing about Freightos and Eculine, both kind of edging their way into the U.S. domestic market through products that are sort of ancillary services to their core, kind of global logistics focus. Ecu, biggest co-loader in the world, neutral NVO. Freightos, predominantly an air cargo and ocean freight, like rate management slash rate marketplace, building in services to kind of tap into this massive U.S. domestic transportation market that everybody wants a piece of. Super fragmented, hard to break into at scale, easy to break into to some level, hard to break into and make a real meaningful impact. But everyone wants a piece of that. And so really interesting to see kind of for companies that are really internationally focused, try to attach those domestic transportation services to their platforms. Ecu is really interesting too. They've predominantly catered only to forwarders as their customers, but they increasingly see opportunities to provide digital solutions directly to shippers. So sort of in some way, their customers. And I won't say it's an uneasy relationship, but it's a difficult path for them to tread to sort of keep those forwarder customers happy while also seeing an opportunity to serve shippers that may not be getting the solutions they want from those forwarders. So lots of interesting stuff going on the technology side as usual, even if the sort of pace of investment is slowed down a little bit. So the last piece I'll highlight is my newsletter, not the one that came out today, but one just before the new year. This was the second guest post by one of my favorite sort of people in the industry, Jonah McIntyre. He founded a company called TNX Logistics that was a freight brokerage spot rate optimization software that got acquired by Transporion. Transporion, meanwhile, just got acquired by Trimble a couple weeks ago. So now they are a part of Trimble. But Jonah wrote for me maybe 2 months ago about Microsoft's sort of supply chain software ambitions, really well received, super insightful. And he did the same when AWS came out with their own sort of splash a couple weeks later. Finally got around to publishing this a few weeks after the AWS announcement. Absolutely worth your while. Jonah understands this space really really well because he himself has used AWS to sort of build his early stage product. So definitely encourage you to read last week's newsletter as well as the one that came out today, which was about pricing power in the forwarding software market, which is probably an interesting lead-in, or as interesting a lead-in as I could possibly have for our guest today, who is Anthony Miller. Anthony, so glad you could join us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So a couple things. Originally, I was supposed to have an investor, Ernest Sweat, join us. He had a last minute issue come up that forced him to cancel, unfortunately. We will have him back at some point. Anthony, who I chat with often, was gracious enough to be a more than worthy stand-in today. And I've been meaning to have you on the show anyway, so this was just a perfect opportunity to.
It's the first show of the year, so what better time to?
Yeah, we're gonna set the tone today, right? So, Anthony has been probably the most prominent voice in global logistics technology on LinkedIn that I can think of over the last year, right? You post literally every day. You have very insightful / provocative / searing in some cases posts. But before we get into that, because I do want to get into that, give people a little bit of background on yourself. How come you are writing about logistics technology every day on LinkedIn?
So it all started because I tried to get out of this industry. I tried to run away. After my experience with Wise, after my experience with WiseTech and that coming to an end, I was like, right, there goes 6 and a bit years of my life. So let's try something different.
What was your experience with WiseTech, by the way? Give people.
Yeah, I was quite fortunate. I guess I've actually, it's you got to say it when it's true. I was really lucky. I've been really lucky in life. I was fortunate to emigrate from the UK to France when I was very young, which allowed me to get a great education, learn another language, and everything ended up leading to me getting an internship at WiseTech at like age 21 or something, which is just very random, I guess. And it was a great experience there, that internship, and it led to a job. So I moved to Sydney, moved to Australia, met Richard, met Vlad, and started out in marketing. Worked there for 3 years, and then decided that for some reason Australia wasn't for me, and I missed Europe. I question that decision every day. I'm one of those eternal nomads, I guess, who is going to be traveling quite a lot throughout my life. But I guess there's worse things. And moved back to Europe working in M&A, and that was probably the most interesting part of the 6 years there. That's where I really got to see the industry inside and out, and learn a lot about customs, a lot about compliance. I got to see that freight forwarding isn't just about moving things from A to B. There's customs and compliance is a big chunk of that, and there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. So I got to fall in love with an industry, I guess. COVID put an end to that journey with WiseTech, and that's when I decided I was going to try and run away from logistics. But it just claws you back in. Logistics just I don't know what it is. The industry is so exciting and ever changing and evolving, and some people would say it's still stuck in a time that in the past, but I don't see that. It's a mixture of both. You've got the great people and the processes, and then you've got tech, and they're all trying to come together. And we're in the middle of something right now, which is just amazing to see. And if anything, WiseTech I wouldn't say they're early to the game, but they've definitely built something great, and they're in this great position today. But they could be the legacy tech tomorrow, kind of thing. If they don't go anywhere fast, and I think we'll talk about that afterwards with M&A and companies growing and potentially growing too much and then struggling to find their place. But it's a very interesting industry, and anyone who's in it now are very fortunate, I feel, because we're going to see some great evolution over the next 5 to 10 years, especially now that Google, Microsoft, and everyone are really starting to get involved. And Flexport brought lots of eyes into the space, and lots of money as well, which some people love. It's allowed a lot of tech businesses to start up that weren't here. Unfortunately, not many of them are trying to solve new problems or real problems. They're just bringing more solutions to the same things. But we'll get there. We are going to get there, and the next few years are going to sort that out a little bit, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. I think that helps give people a little bit of background who may have read your post but didn't realize you had that background. We talked about this, I think, last summer. when we first chatted. What was the impetus for sort of writing so consistently and having the viewpoint that you do on LinkedIn? What sort of made you go, okay, I need to be like a voice in this industry through this channel?
So that's actually a really interesting question. It started out. I was so I was working freelance marketing for some companies outside of the industry, but I started missing logistics, and I think my girlfriend would have ended up leaving me if I kept talking to her about it, because every time something was happening, I was like, "Oh, babe, this is happening in logistics." She's like, "I don't. This is not my thing. Sorry." So I had to, find an outlet with that, and
How dare she find it uninteresting? That's unacceptable.
it's.
Every person's.
I mean, that's what I said, but everyone can decide what they enjoy, I guess. But if you don't like logistics, you have to be crazy. It's such an amazing thing. But from there, I had to find something, and I was working with this nonprofit, WeVise, who were trying to build a mentoring platform, and I think they're actually starting back up. That didn't quite pan out, and hopefully they're starting back up because there's some great people. And I wanted to show them the power of social media, because obviously I only had a small LinkedIn profile. I had 400 connections. There was nothing going on. I wasn't posting, no interaction. So I basically said to them, listen, don't listen to me, just watch this. And I started posting every day. No matter what was going on, I would make a point of posting every day. And I did that consistently. I think I must have missed about 5 days over 6 months. And that's how it started. But after a while, I was like, hang on a second. I'm reading, because you need to interact on LinkedIn, otherwise there's no point. And I'm reading other people's content, and I realized that a lot of it, and I know this is going to come across in the wrong way, but a lot of it is people congratulating each other for not much. A business will post something and say, we did this, and everyone's like, yay. But when you think about it and you dig deep into the numbers or what they're talking about, they didn't do much. They haven't changed anything concrete. It's just, we do celebrate small victories, don't get me wrong, but there was no real truth. There was no real debate. There was no real, what is going on? So I started looking into that. And I think one of the big catalysts for me, and something that helped me grow as well, was, on LinkedIn, my presence was when P44 launched their movement platform. And everyone was like, yay, well done, this is amazing. And I just turned around and said, well, what is it? After watching the presentation and everything, and I just said, what is it? And nobody could really answer, and it just went from there. I don't think anyone can still answer that question, actually, but anyway, we'll leave that for another time.
Well, no, I think what's interesting, and I have a follow-up question about kind of what your process is for deciding what to write about day to day. As someone who also is tasked with figuring out what to write about each week, and I'm very interested in that. I think the P44 thing was interesting because it's not that you're right or wrong, but you are sort of like tickling parts of people's brains that I think they have thoughts about themselves, and they don't know whether they're right or wrong about it either, but they're reticent to put it out because you're right. Like, especially LinkedIn tends to be a very sort of self-congratulatory environment in some cases. I hate, like, I don't know if people understand. I know they're trying to be really nice, but I don't know if when I write something and someone says, this is fantastic, Eric is the best at this, like, I recoil at that, because my natural thing is like, you're not supposed to like me. You're supposed to like question me. And I'm, it's, and I know I sound like very ungrateful, and I don't mean to sound that way, but there's that instinct. It's like, wait, what? If you agree with me, I don't trust your judgment. Right. So, so I think that's what's been interesting to observe your posts. Not that I agree with everything you write, or sometimes it makes me go and look at my presumptions about the thing that you're writing about, and maybe it strengthens them, or maybe it makes me.
But that's what I want. That's the effect that I'm trying to get. I want people to read something and go, and think about it, and then go and do some research, go and talk to some other people, go and figure it out, and make your own, form your own opinions and make decisions. Because one of the things that I've really been noticing, we can talk about the visibility space. I guess there's very few players when you think about it. And a lot of it, as I've said, is the same data in different wrappers from different providers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
You know, you can look at
It's an
Ocean, most of it's
aggregation
just
game in a lot of cases, right? So it's how you sort of.
what's that? Sorry.
It's an aggregation game, so it's
Yeah.
sort of
Oh,
how
yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it kind of boggles the mind because you've got this, everyone's selling the same thing, and there's not much to it. You could probably build a, you know, data scraping pretty quickly. When you talk about ocean, I'm not talking about land. Like, I'm not going to get involved in that. There's a lot more complicated, that's, you know, very fragmented, and there's a lot there to take into account. But when you're talking about the ocean side of things, which really blew up as well, you know, last year everyone was talking about it. You've got this I don't know, it's just I wanted people to go and look at it and actually look at the data and actually figure out what they were getting and what they're paying for, because companies are spending a lot of money on this. I mean, when you listen to the likes of P44 talk about the money they're making and how much people are paying and contracted revenue, again, I won't go there. It's this whole, it's expensive for potentially nothing. And people need to ask the questions before they find out 6 months, 12 months after signing a contract that actually they're not getting what the marketing material says. And that's a big problem. And that's something I'm trying to challenge in our industry. The marketing material is often very different from what people are actually getting. And when you talk to, you know, BCOs who use this tech, or freight forwarders, 3PLs, whatever, that a lot of them are, they're signing up for something and then they're left scratching their heads. And you can talk about CargoWise in the same way, because CargoWise, everyone says it's the best platform for freight forwarders. And, you know, well, everyone doesn't say that, sorry, I say that. And it is the leading platform. You cannot argue that it isn't the best solution for the top 3PLs out there.
Yeah.
It's the best global platform. But again, if you don't work with a consultant, you know, a CargoWise partner, once you take the platform on, you might as well just use a pen and paper at the end of the day, because it's very complicated and you need to know that you're going to go through that. And people don't really talk about that either. They just talk about how great it is if they love it, or how tedious it is if they hate it. But they don't say, well, if you actually take it, and it is expensive, as you know, I wrote about the other day, if you actually use the solution and get a partner to help you set it up, you've got a great piece of software. But that whole, you don't get that whole picture, and you don't get the thought-provoking full, oh, this is the process I'm going to have to go through. So yeah, it's hard. It is hard because people want all the information, but you can't give them everything, because you're then giving your opinion, your position, and that's not the truth. That's your truth. That's your logic. And that's unfair. You can't just say to people, yeah, this is how it is. No, that's what you think. Maybe they're in a different position. Every freight forwarder is different. Every business is unique. And, you know, CargoWise may not be the right fit for everyone. It isn't the right fit for everyone. There's a lot of great solutions out there.
So, I mean, CargoWise is interesting. It's probably the company that, like, especially in my newsletter, that I've sort of written about or tangentially about the most, because I like to say they don't have a dominant share of the forwarding market, but they have a dominant share of the market that has invested in some sort of platform, right? That's the way I try to think about it. So am I wrong on that? Before I ask,
I mean,
I'm not supposed to ask two questions.
Okay, WiseTech, CargoWise, where do they sit if you think about it today? You can look at them pre-acquisition spree and then post-acquisition spree if you want, but at the end of the day, they're the same company. They conquered their home market. They sit there. They've got full control of that market. They're in a great position, and there's not much their customers can do, which is why they've faced quite a bit of, you know, scrutiny over there from their customers, because their customers feel trapped, I guess, with the platform. There's no other options.
It's
really
very sticky.
Oh, and that, yeah, we can talk about, yeah. I mean, that's by design, right? But that's great software. Any software. I mean, once you're in Apple or Google's ecosystem, you don't want to leave. You know, I'm stuck with Android for life now with my phone, because I just don't want to go through the process of learning an iPhone and changing ecosystems. But in saying that, WiseTech have pivoted. I mean, they've changed names so many times. You know, WiseTech, CargoWise. One day it's the company, then the product, CargoWise One, etc. There's been a lot of testing the water and figuring out where they want to be positioned. Now we're seeing them focus on the top end, right? Focus on the Armstrong and Associates top 25 freight forwarder list. That could be a WiseTech, a who's who of WiseTech's current and potential customers, if you want to look at it that way. And they're now shifting to build for that specifically, and the rest is like a side thought, I guess. That's how I see WiseTech today. That's where I think they're positioned, and credit to them what they've done. I mean, when someone asked me who are WiseTech's competitors, I asked, what are you asking about? Top 25, top 100? Nobody. For the rest of it, then take your pick, because it's anyone's
Email and
game. There's
Excel.
so many great solutions.
Email and Excel, that's their competitors for the most part.
I mean, why not? Hey, listen, if you're willing to pay a load of consultants to build you something, then you could probably build your own solution, but it'll take you a long time, a lot of effort, and today with all the providers out there, it's probably not worth it. Because I mean, it was stagnant, right? You had CargoWise, and then you've got so CargoWise, Descartes, Magaya, Blue Jay, who used to be Keywall. You had this whole kind of stagnant looking thing where you'd pick one and that's it. That when they would go up against each other, you'd usually have the same three names at the top, and that's how those processes were. SAP tried something with DHL. We all know how that went. But then you look at today, there's a lot of new solutions coming out.
Go Freight, interesting one.
Go for it. Exactly. That's the one I was thinking about. I'm glad you said a name, because I'm saying all these names. I'm glad you said one there. Go for it's actually a great example of a company that's building software for an SMB market. I don't think they're going to have pretensions for enterprise right now, or at least I hope they don't, because that's how you're going to slip up. But if they're focusing on that smaller freight forwarder market, they can build a great product. I've said for a long time, a CargoWise Lite would be amazing. They're probably not going to do it, but a CargoWise Lite would be great, because that segment, that long tail SMB, smaller freight forwarders, there's so many, and they need great software too. They're not just an afterthought. They do need these products. So yeah, it's an interesting, software is interesting, and there's so many platforms now. And when we look at CargoWise and their stickiness, it's something that's always fascinated me, because I spoke about their pricing and their price increases recently.
I mentioned that. I mentioned that in my newsletter today.
Yeah, I saw it.
I mentioned it. So yeah.
Yeah, I read it, and I was just, they do it often. People don't see this, but if you look at it, if you get the price lists, and if you look at things, WiseTech are changing their pricing every 3 times a year or something, I guess. I don't know, they'll probably put something out and say, oh, this is actually what we do, whatever. It's like 2-3 times a year they probably change their pricing. They've got this way of making more revenue appear. It's pretty fantastic. When you realize that adding just a 20-cent charge on something can increase by 15-20% a monthly bill for one of these top 3PLs, how sticky does your solution need to be for them to keep accepting it? That's my question. How far are they going to be able to go before people over at DSV or something, who have been on the platform for nearly 20 years, go, hang on, we're paying how much for what, and they've done what, and they work it all out?
Well, I may be stealing the thunder from my own newsletter this week, but I likened it to like a house that you're really comfortable in, and that you've paid a mortgage on for 10 years, and you've paid a down payment, and your family's lives are intertwined with this house, and you love your neighbors, but the property tax goes up a lot over like a 2-year period. Like, what's the threshold at which you say, nope, can't do this anymore, even if it's unpleasant for everybody involved, right? That's, I think, the consideration. Right.
I mean, and there's the need as well, right? Right now, there's no way to replace. So there's no.
Yeah.
You can't replace CargoWise with something else. There's no one other solution. There's no option there. If you've got CargoWise, anything you're going to use that's not there's no like for like. So you're going to be stepping down. You're going to be sacrificing something on the principle that you don't want to pay more money. Right. But in saying that, we're getting to the point now with technology changing, all the money flowing in, innovation. We're actually getting to the point where you could replace a CargoWise in the near future. I don't think today, but in the near future, you could potentially replace them with a handful of solutions that will be able to work seamlessly together, which is something we're all building towards. There's solutions that focus on that, but also the new solutions appearing, they're being very open, and they want to make sure that there's collaboration, because they know that's the future. WiseTech's the opposite, right? They want to be the Apple of the industry. So when we look at that, I think within 5 or 10 years, maybe even sooner, there's going to be a lot of questions asked, and there's some great solutions out there that people could start moving towards. One of the questions I would love to have answered, and I've asked this in a few conversations, I never got an answer. When I was at WiseTech, I worked on the custom strategy and the acquisitions there, right? Which was amazing. There was a strategy for M&A, went out and acquired companies everywhere. It feels like it was everywhere, specifically for customs because it's very important. Customs in freight forwarding is huge. It's taken them a long time to figure that out, even after acquisitions with some countries like Brazil, for example. They just said that they've achieved something in Brazilian accounting compliance. That is a tough nut to crack, and it's took them a long time. But what I'm thinking now is who of the top customers is using that customs functionality? Do they want to put more eggs in the same basket when we're talking about cybersecurity quite a lot now and things like that as well? How risky is it to have all of your forwarding and then all of your customs sitting on the same platform? What does that mean for a 4-hour outage, a 90-minute outage, a 12-hour outage, a whole weekend of the system being down? There's also questions there that nothing's 100% secure, and I know CargoWise have got a great track record, but from a proactive perspective, you need to ask those questions. So that's going to be another one for them to answer as cybersecurity becomes something bigger.
I agree, and cyber is an issue that I have not touched upon enough on this show, and I need to more in 23. That's definitely a resolution for this year. Before we move away from CargoWise, because we're fast running out of time, and I have so many questions for you. I probably have to have you back at some point.
Awesome.
You mentioned at the outset something I wanted to talk about, which is this sort of doomed path that companies have to be on. There's the old business adage: you grow or die. Mm-hmm. Stagnation is the devil. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, you either have to organically grow or go, what CargoWise did, which is what a lot of logistics software providers do when they get to a certain scale, is they just start to acquire for customer books of customers, for regions, to add in a missing function or component that they don't have. Mm. But what I see, and I've written about this, and we've talked about it on the show before, is there's not often a lot of tight integration between these acquisitions that are made, and it ends up just being a catalog of systems rather than one unified platform. How do you can a company get bigger and better, or are they sort of doomed to just get bigger and not as good as they were before they got bigger?
I don't think we've got the answer to that yet, because we haven't seen the success story in our industry. It doesn't matter who you look at, but we've seen a lot of failures. Yeah. So we know what not to do. And that's important, because then the next time it can be done better, and we need to learn from other people's mistakes. So I'm not trying to be vague, but we could look at E2Open, for example. They made acquisitions. They tried to build something. They got bigger. Didn't really get better. We can look at WiseTech. They definitely got bigger. They did their strategy, customs. We haven't had answers to the questions. We don't know who's using it. As far as I'm aware, they still have many countries where they haven't integrated the product. And I think this comes down to integrations. The integrations are not just about the financial and the control aspect. You can have, you can integrate the finance aspect of the company. You can integrate the tech. You can take control. That's all great. But you really need to succeed in your integration strategy with the product. And CargoWise is a great example. I think Germany's still not done for customs. I think Brazil, they're just starting to talk about things now. Before they made that Brazilian announcement, I'm hearing from forwarders, people using the legacy product in Brazil, that the quality of the product and the service they've been getting has dropped since the acquisition. Because when you take a team and you split them, I don't know how WiseTech split the team, but let's just say, for argument's sake, they split them 50-50, and you have half of them working on the legacy product and then half of them working on the actual integration into CargoWise to have one product natively. The quality is going to drop. So you can't afford to take 4 or 5 years. And I think that's what has hit CargoWise and WiseTech hard. This has been a very drawn out integration process. E2Open's problem is they haven't told anyone who they are. we don't know what they're doing. Nobody really knows what they're trying to achieve. We're still waiting for that moment where they say, this is our new global offering. This is what we've built. This is what we're trying to do. And then you can end up like Descartes, which is a portfolio of companies. You go on Descartes' website, you look at the menu at the top and the nav bar, and there's, it's a who's who of who we acquired and what we do. But there's no real consistency to it. And they're a great company, for niche needs and things, like they're great. I'm not saying anything.
They haven't hidden behind that. I think they've always seen themselves as like a federation of products, not necessarily like one integrated suite.
Right? No, and that's fine. But where does that get you? If you've got an M&A strategy and you're doing M&A, where does it get you? I mean, sure, spend money, buy logos, but then you get stuck in this need to do it. So you're going to keep having every so often to go out there to acquire companies, to get new logos, to get new functionality, to grow. Otherwise, you're going to be stagnant, and we know that stagnant companies usually end up declining. It's a very interesting problem that I don't think anyone in the logistics space, like in log tech, freight tech, has managed to do in the right way, to approach in the right way. And they've all had strategies, but so far none of them are working out. I'll be excited to see what happens with Trimble and Transporion, actually. That's going to be a very interesting one, because if Trimble try to push you were saying earlier about the US market and how interesting it is, where CH Robinson play, and it is very interesting, and everyone wants a piece of that pie. But you also got the European market, which is pretty interesting as well. If Trimble try to force what they do onto the European market, that's going to be it's not really going to work very well. That's not how Europe works. So yeah, it all depends on strategy. We'll see, but we can learn from other companies' mistakes, and then the next one that comes along hopefully can do a better job, and we will eventually get to that moment where it's like, wow, these guys did what? Wow, yes, But I'm still waiting to see it. Maybe it'll be Maersk. Who knows? Maybe.
Well, so let's maybe move over to M&A. I mean, I mentioned the C.H. Robinson thing. You just mentioned it. There was a lot of chatter in the second half of last year about different permutations of forwarder / 3PLs kind of merging with one another. DB Schenker's was obviously, kind of fairly out there on the market in terms of, and then I think they finally acknowledged it late in the year. People had been speculating about C.H. Robinson for a while, about them, maybe selling their forwarding unit. And now with the change at the top, right? So now the rumor mill has gone out of control, right? So everybody has a thought about what C.H. Robinson's next move should be. What do you think would be the smart move for them to do?
Oh gosh, this goes back to what we were saying earlier, where we shouldn't tell people the whole story. We shouldn't tell people what we think. We should try and help them have their own thoughts. But I like the idea just because I love change and disruption, and I think that's how we're going to get innovation. And I love the idea of a Flexport CH Robinson kind of thing going on, and that's purely because they both need it, and they can either both succeed together or fail together. That's how I see it, and it will accelerate either outcome. And yeah, I think that'll be a great thing for the industry, whatever happens. And I know that sounds bad, like saying it'd be great if they both fail together, but at least we will be able to learn from that failure, and something else will come into that space. Because the business that CH Robinson do, the business that Flexport do, that volume is not going to disappear. That's still going to need to be done by someone. And the people that work at these companies, they're still going to need to go somewhere to handle that volume. There's a lot of smart people in these two companies that are working there. And they will have no problem, changing jobs and moving. I'm not worried about the people. What I'm worried about is what these companies represent and where they're at today. CH Robinson has probably made a lot of bad decisions on the tech side. And then Flexport, as I wrote about again, I guess they're moving away from being a tech company to being a global 3PL now, like they said. Well, good luck to them with that. But if they were to work together, that would give Flexport what they need to be able to actually hit the ground running as a global 3PL. It's kind of buy your way in thing. They could do it. And CH Robinson would then, I guess, be in a more stable situation. I saw someone was saying, I don't remember who, but they were saying Dave Clark would be great for that role because of his background. And I don't really know much. All I know is what I've been seeing about Amazon and the legacy he's left there, and what Amazon are going through now. And some people are saying Amazon are going to have to cut back all the warehousing and all the staff, and we're looking at another 20,000 people losing their jobs and warehouses closing down and everything. that's scary to think about. So if they go building that kind of thing with Flexport, I hope that they do it with a little bit more restraint and Flexport walk before they run. And if they do work together with C.H. Robinson, that could allow them to show that restraint, because it's a much more complicated picture. And the people at C.H. Robinson would be able to bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience to that table, and hopefully question the leadership and say, you want to do what? Because we've got to remember, these people are not forwarders at Flexport. They don't have that experience. I mean, I'm not a forwarder, but I know that freight forwarding is something very specific, and you need, experience to run these big businesses. So it's going to be an interesting outcome. But so people were saying Flexport and DB Schenker. I don't see that one necessarily as much. It's not the same backyard. It's not the same geographical location. And
I mean,
yeah.
isn't there a, like, some of these combinations I've seen, there's also like a financial reality, right? Like C.H. Robinson is not like Flexport is what, valued at something like 8, or it was a year ago.
8 or 10, they're saying?
That was a year ago, right? I mean, it may be lower than that now. It might be higher. I don't know. I don't know how these things really are calculated, but I mean, they would have to raise some serious capital to acquire either of those two companies, because it's in a reverse merger. Again, I'm not a finance person, so some of this stuff just, like, I feel like a little kid talking.
It's fantasy as well, There's a chance it doesn't happen. Like it'd be interesting, sure, but then you could also say, a C.H. Robinson and a DSV, for example. That would make total sense. It'd make more sense from a financial perspective, and DSV would be able to get some interesting business over there in NA and expand. And if they could bring CargoWise onto the freight forwarding arm of C.H. Robinson, and that's basically plug and play for DSV now. They've done it like 3 times. They did Panalpina, Agility. That DSV have got that down, so they could easily do that, and that's that part saved. And then they've got smart people, so I'm guessing for the rest of the business they'll be able to optimize and improve, and so that also makes a lot of sense. DSV are great at that. I mean, what they did with Panalpina, that shows that they are in one of the best positions to go in and buy these equivalent businesses and turn them around and do some great things with them. I'd love to see that as well. Actually, that'd be a fun outcome. That'd be very interesting to see. One of the sad things is, whatever happens, I don't necessarily see C.H. Robinson coming out of this without some kind of acquisition or some change there, because everyone knows now the problems they've got. Everyone knows the situation they're in. If something drastic doesn't happen, it's only downhill from here. And our industry is about consolidation. And as soon as you show some weakness, that's it. Sharks are circling. Companies want to grow. DSV want to be number one, right? You've got Kuehne+Nagel at the top, DHL, DSV. They're all juggling to take that top spot. Yeah. DB Schenker, who's going to require that? You could have DHL acquire DB Schenker and DSV acquire C.H. Robinson, and all of these crazy things could happen. And right now, everything's possible. Everything is possible.
Well, how's that for setting the tone for 2023? Everything is possible. Let me ask. I had a bunch more questions, so we have to have you back at some point.
Sure.
But I always end every show or guest appearance on the show with my favorite question. What's your favorite band or musician? And you have to tell me why.
Okay. That's a great question. I couldn't say why. All I can say is what I'm listening to a lot right now. That's it. Okay. I've been listening to a lot of Aerosmith and a lot of Eminem, and I love the collab that they did. For some reason, I can listen to that for an hour. I don't know. There's something I love about mixing of genres. I just find it really.
Well, I'm dating myself. I'm dating myself here, but I mean, like many kids of the 80s, I learned about Aerosmith through them, through Run DMC redoing an Aerosmith song in the mid 80s, right? So yeah, that collaboration stuff has been really interesting for a long time, and I guess they've been probably more open to it than most. So very cool. You can't go wrong with Aerosmith. I think I read I think I read that Steven Tyler said he spent $5 million over his lifetime on cocaine, which is an interesting tidbit about it. It was like,
Okay.
Wow, it's pretty good to
Well,
be in a position
yeah,
where you spend that much money on destroying your body, but go for it.
sure. I mean, he's still going strong. I saw him on the
He's still going
Eminem's
strong.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I know.
Eminem recently, and he made an appearance. And
Yeah.
wow, yeah, he's still going strong.
He's him and Keith Richards, they'll outlive us all. So uh well, Anthony,
Maybe.
thank you so much. This has been awesome. We will definitely
Yeah, it
have
was
you
a good
back
chat.
at some point. People can find you on LinkedIn. I think it's not hard to find you. You are as consistent as anybody on LinkedIn. So is that the best place for people to reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best. If then, yeah, but you know me. If anyone's got any questions or comments, just reach out. I'm struggling to get through my messages, and I'm not saying that. It's just LinkedIn is a horrible platform to get through them. But if just reach out, and
Good at
I'm always.
connectivity. It's bad at the actual interaction. So
Oh, it's horrible to use, and messages disappear, and it's yeah. But anyway, LinkedIn
all good.
aside, just reach out. I'll answer any questions. I'm always happy to have a chat. And yeah, let's hope for a great 2023. And as we said, anything can happen. I think we'll stick with that for 2023. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks,
We'll
Eric.
we'll talk soon. Bye. All right. Didn't expect anything less but a thought-provoking conversation with Anthony. Definitely reach out to him on LinkedIn, comment, message him directly. So real quickly before we wrap up, dad joke of the week. It's not my best one, but I want to set the bar low so I can get better as the year progresses. Why did the jam business fail? Because they spread themselves too thin. Don't do that. Focus. Don't let scope creep happen and ruin your jam business. Thank you to Anthony. Thank you to Sarah and my awesome producer of the show, Nicole. Amazing as always. Thank you first and foremost to everyone who tunes in every episode and supports the show. I cannot thank you enough. I have a ball doing this. So as long as you people keep coming, I will keep doing this. And as long as Sarah and her team keep inviting me back, I will keep doing this. Check out my Substack. Just had a new post earlier today. Check me on joc.com. We have a brand new website. It's killer. We have this cool new data feature called the Gateway that you should really try out. It has all sorts of cool data sets to play around with, and you can pull into charts and presentations and social. It's really cool. And I'll see you in 2 weeks with another fantastic episode. It's going to be the first on-site live episode with my guests that I've done on LogTech Live. That's my only spoiler alert, but it's going to be cool. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Have a great New Year, everyone. And hopefully we'll also see you in Las Vegas and Long Beach in a couple months.